Hello, St. Thomas. This is your priest in charge, Alex Dyer. I'm here with Gregory Zitterkob. Today, actually, we're recording this on World Refugee Day, which is June 20th, an important day in our calendar. And I thought it was a great time to kind of stop and talk to Gregory about our refugee project. For those of you who don't know, this has kind of been an ongoing thing, kind of with fits and starts. But I want to get an update of where we are with it right now.
Well, at the moment, we're unfortunately in a bit of a holding pattern. We have done everything that we need to do to prepare to be matched with a family, well, up to the point that we're able. The situation that we're in now is that the number of refugees arriving in the DC area has really diminished in the last several months. We had a training in March with Lutheran Social Services, which is the agency in the area that helps resettle refugees. And at the time they told us that they were seeing their numbers decline. They were hoping that that would reverse, but unfortunately there were 0 arrivals in the month of May. There were only 2 scheduled for June, and as of now there are 4 scheduled for July, which is very low. And there are a number of congregations that are sort of ahead of us in the queue, so to speak, that have been in the
waiting
pipeline,
game.
right, exactly, for longer than we have. So it's not really clear when there will be a family that we could be matched with at the moment.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, in the sense of, historically, these seem like very low numbers, I would expect. What is why the decrease?
Well, there are a number of things that are at play, and DC is a little bit of a special case, but in the country as a whole, of course, there's the travel ban, which affects people from 6 different countries. They're entirely barred from entering the country. On top of that, the Trump administration slashed the number of refugees allowed into the country each year. In 2017, before he left office, President Obama had increased the annual cap from 85,000 to 110,000, which is still a very low number given how large a country we are, and the fact that in 2017 there were something like 65 million displaced people in the world, which is a historical high. But when President Trump arrived in office, he slashed that number to 50,000 for last year, which we reached in July, very early on. And then that number was further reduced to 45,000 for the fiscal year 2018.
Wow.
And I just read a projection today in The Guardian that it's likely that we will end the fiscal year having only received 21 to 22,000 refugees, less than half of that already very small 45,000 cap.
Yeah, and the original number that was in the previous administration was well beyond that.
Right.
So how does that make you feel as a person of faith, when we're willing to reach out and willing to do this, and could mean so much for the refugee family or individual, and could mean so much for us? I mean, how does that make you feel as a person of faith?
Outraged, frankly a little depressed. Sadly, it's not entirely surprising given the history of our country, but more recently what Trump promised would be his priorities when it came to immigration before he was ever elected. I think, all of what is happening is completely antithetical to the gospel, and what is really demoralizing from my point of view is how many self-identified Christians seem to be on board with this. And of course there are people who are now starting to stand up, and the other thing going on is obviously children being separated from their parents at the border, just rightly getting a lot of attention. But that's not the only thing that's happening. In addition to the cap on the number of people allowed in the country every year, there's a lot of stuff that we don't see going on in the background that has slowed things down almost to not quite a screeching halt, but just the processing of refugees behind the scenes has slowed to a creep. And I read it described this way one place, that it's basically death by 1,000 paper cuts. They're doing everything in their power not to even reach their own stated goals, and that's not what Christ calls us to do. We're supposed to welcome the stranger.
So is there anything we can do, or anything?
I mean, just not be silent and make noise. Let our elected officials know that this is unacceptable.
kind of to maybe tell our story in the
Yeah.
sense of where we're at too. And I know we have people that, unfortunately here in DC, don't really have our representatives as much as we would like, but there are friends and family who do live in other parts of the country that I think, to hear our story,
Absolutely.
and tell our story is important. So pray for refugees, pray for us, pray that our country will one day again find a better sense of morality, and that we can get through this. In the meantime, a great thing to do is to come to church and to gather together as we try to combat all the things that are facing our nation today. So I will see you in church on Sunday. You're going to be in church on Sunday?
I'll be there.
You'll be there. All right. We'll both see you on Sunday.